Hello, everyone. This is Debbie from Organic Oasis in California, Zone 9B. Today, I'm excited to share with you a recipe, marinated sugar snap peas with ginger and mint. And we'll be using the sugar snap peas from our yard, actually a lot of snow peas. And we will be also using some mint and some green onions from our yard. And I'm really excited because this is the first harvest of our peas this season. I like this book, Preserving by the Pint by Marissa McClellan. It's for people like me and you if you grow a small garden in suburbia. We don't have a farm, we don't have acreage, we just have a small backyard vegetable garden. So let's go out and I'll show you our pea row. Here is our garden and our peas are in the back. You can see them growing up along the back fence. So I just planted them in 7-gallon bags. I have them mixed in with a few other things. There's our kale plant. But basically all along here is our peas. We have different types. So we have those shorter ones are actually the bush peas. And then we are growing some vining peas. And the reason why I did that, and again, we go back over here to the bush peas. The reason why I'm doing that is because the bush peas actually, you can see they're loaded with peas. I just harvested them yesterday and they're already loaded again. So they produce very quickly. And as you can see, the vining peas are just starting to get some peas on them. So I figured the bush peas will be done and then we'll be harvesting from the vine peas. So I'm really excited about that. So I need some mint. I'm going to snip off here some of this mint. As you can see, it's out of control. This is why we plant our mint in bags, because if you don't, you see how it's vining? It's trying to spread out. So I'm getting ready to cut the mint down and actually just dehydrate it. And it will grow back. So I'm just going to snip off a few little branches here. I need a few green onions for this pickled peas that I'm going to be making. And I just add my green onions to the different bags that I have. So the green onions are sort of all over the place. So here I have a little herb bag and I'll just be taking a few of these little green onions off of here. The first thing we're going to do in this recipe is to combine the rice vinegar with the salt and honey in a small saucepan and just heat until the honey is dissolved. And here I'm just using this rice vinegar. The recipe calls for 1 1/4 cup of rice vinegar. Here's my cup. 1/4 cup. So 1 1/4 cup of rice vinegar. 1 teaspoon of just a fine sea salt. 1 tablespoon of honey. I'm just using this organic honey from Kirkland. And what I'm going to do next is just put it on the stove on a low heat and stir it until I can see that the honey is dissolved into this mixture. I will be back in a few seconds. Once we have our vinegar, salt, and honey mixture and we have blended in the honey in here, we have that done. We also need to prep the peas. So I have the peas here. I harvested them yesterday and I just washed them really well and put them in this bag in the refrigerator. They're still looking very good. They didn't soften or anything because that was my biggest concern. You don't want them to soften, right? You want them to stay nice and crisp. These are really, really crisp. Okay. Now, the recipe does call for a snap pea, and these are snow peas, but we need to remove any strings and any ends. So they recommend taking scissors and just snipping the ends and pulling any strings. So I'm going to quickly go through and do that and measure out 1 pound of peas. So what I'm actually doing, the way I'm prepping my peas, and I have them on a scale here because I need 1 pound. I'm just pulling my peas, and I have a mixture here of peas, and actually I'd have to go back and look at my pea packets to remember which peas are which, but I have a mixture. So all I'm doing is I'm just pulling, I'm with my fingers pulling the ends, and if there's any strings that need to be pulled off, they will naturally pull off with this. So see, if I pull it, the strings will come with it. If the pea is exceptionally large, you can cut them in half. These peas are not super large. But if I peel the end and there's no string, I just don't worry about it. If I peel it like this one and there's a string, then I just go ahead and remove the string. And then I do it to the other end too. That way I know I'm getting any tough pieces. I mean, these peas, I can eat them just like this. Even with the strings on, it doesn't bother me. But, um, you know, it's a little extra work to remove the strings. And it would be, you'll have a nice, much more smoother pea without like a lot of chewing necessary. So, you know, if you have the time, go ahead and do what I'm doing. There are some peas that if you don't remove the string, they're really not edible. The shelling peas are an example of that. But these are a mixture of the snappy peas, snow peas, and the strings are not, they're edible. You can actually eat them with the strings on. It's not a deal breaker. So I'm just going to go through until I get 1 pound of my peas, and I'll be back in a minute. We have our peas all ready to go. Tomato Tim helped me, and we went through and took all the strings out of the snow peas and the snappy peas. So the only other thing we needed to do was we need a mint sprig, which I just took the top of one of our mint branches. We need a green onion, and the recipe says to just cut it into 3 pieces so it fits in the jar. I'm going to take 2 of my green onions since I harvested 2 and I don't want to waste them. And then you needed 3 ginger slices. So I don't grow ginger. I just had grocery store ginger. And I just took and peeled it, and I just sliced up some little pieces. So what we do now is we're going to go ahead and put this into this quart jar. It's a wide mouth quart jar. I'm just going to put the onions in. I'm going to put the mint in here, put in this the ginger, excuse me. And then we start packing in the peas. And it calls for 1 pound of peas. However, my peas only came to about 3/4 of a pound. So I did not have a whole pound of peas. And what they basically say in the recipe is to just put them all in. And if you can't fit them all in, then put the liquid in. And then after you put the liquid in, then try to put the rest of the peas in. Now I have a lot of peas left out in the garden to harvest, but I don't want to harvest them if I don't need them. So I'm just going to try to put all these peas in. And if it seems like there's just a lot of room left, I will go harvest more peas. But it feels like I don't think I'm going to even be able to put in this 3/4 pounds. So I'm going to be working at doing this, and I will come back with you in a minute. So what I'm going to do now is, because it seems it's a little tough to get all these peas in here, I'm going to go ahead. I have the vinegar, rice vinegar, honey, and sea salt here. I'm going to go ahead and pour it in. It is hot. So I suppose the idea is this is going to cook the peas just a little bit and soften them. And then the recipe says at this point, you might actually be able to put in some more peas. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure the bubbles are gone. Now I'm going to see if I can fit in a few more peas. Now what we do next is we just basically, now the liquid didn't come all the way up to the top. I'm following the recipe, but the liquid is not coming to the top. So I don't know if it's supposed to, but it says to go ahead and try to put in more peas, and then you just cap it up. You wait for it to cool down, and then you put it in the refrigerator, and it's ready to eat in 24 hours. And then after you open them and start eating them, you can actually, they will last in the refrigerator for 5 to 7 days. So I'm going to go ahead and get a lid here and put the lid on. As you can see, there's a problem with this recipe. I added the ginger slices, the mint sprig, I added the onion, the green onion, and then I packed the peas in and I poured the brine over. But look closely. You see how the brine only covers half of the peas, I mean. So that's a problem because when you pickle something, it needs to cover all of the produce. So I went back and looked at the cookbook, and again, I noticed several of the recipes making pickles. It's the same thing. The liquid isn't enough to cover the produce. So I went and searched online, and I found a snow pea pickling recipe that they put in a cup of vinegar and a cup of water. So what I'm going to do now to save this recipe is I'm just going to add, this was 1 1/4 cup of vinegar, of rice vinegar, and it had the salt and the sugar, the honey, the salt in it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just simmering water, and I'm just going to fill it up all the way to the very top with just water. The water will mix with the vinegar with the brine solution, and it will cover all of the peas, and it should be fine. We are not using this to preserve the peas. So let me explain this. This experiment is not going to be something that could be dangerous to you. These peas are going to sit out until the water cools off. Once I put the water in, I'm going to cap it up, and I'm going to leave this sitting for about an hour until it's cooled off. Then it's going to go into the refrigerator, and they're ready to eat in 24 hours. So we're not preserving these for any length of time. Because of vinegar and water, there's not going to be a lot of bacteria in here. This should be very clean, and we're not preserving it for any length of time. It won't be sitting out at room temperature. Once the brine is cooled off, it will go right into the refrigerator. Again, vinegar and cooler temperatures will keep anything from growing in here. So I'm not concerned with that. What I am concerned with is that I just put 3/4 pound of peas in my jar, and I want it to taste good so I can eat it, and Tim and I can enjoy it, and we didn't waste our good fresh produce. So let's go ahead. I'm going to add the water, and I will come back in a minute and show you how it looks. Then I will be sitting it out until it cools, and then I'll put it in my refrigerator, and tomorrow, 24 hours later, I will taste it, and I will come back and let's find out how they taste if it turns out. Thanks for watching. Okay, so this is much better. As you can see, now that I added the water to the top and I packed more peas in, this looks absolutely gorgeous. But the true test will be tomorrow, is it going to taste good? So tomorrow evening, late afternoon, I will come back and let's open the jar. We'll open it together and see how this comes out. I hope it's delicious. Getting back to you with a review of the pickled peas. We did have the mishap with the recipe. The author might have made a mistake, and we didn't have enough liquid, but I went ahead and topped it up with water, and this recipe did turn out really good. As you can see, we almost have an empty bottle here, an empty jar here. It's been about 5 days since I made this. The following day, after 24 hours, I opened it. I poured a bowl. I had a few friends over, and it almost got all eaten up in one sitting. So Tim and I have been nibbling on these ever since, and it is really, really good. It reminds me of a sweet pickle. So if you're not into sweet pickles, you probably won't like it. It did have honey in the recipe. You could leave the honey out, and it would just be a dill pea. This, because it had the honey, it is more of a sweetened pickle recipe. The peas, as you can see, the color is still really good. They still have a crunch. They didn't come like hot water and hot vinegar did not soften them too much. They're perfect texture, really tart, but have a tinge of sweetness. I will post a link to the original recipe with a big note that you have to add water. So 1¼ cups of vinegar, 1¼ cups of water. Or do what I did and just make the brine, pour it in and top it up with water. But definitely a keeper recipe for peas. I hope you grow peas and I hope you try this recipe. Please comment below if you do make this recipe and how you like it. Also, if you have another pea recipe for snap peas and snow peas